Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for the late start. No really good excuses, just I was late getting some dinner, and then I sort of wanted to get some work done tonight, but I normally cast at this time. So, well, not at this time, but I normally cast on a Monday, so I bit the bullet and hit the start streaming button. But I'm doing so later, and that probably means it'll be a relatively short cast. So we'll jump into the game right away. One nice thing about this particular session will be that I don't remember what I was going to do last cast. Actually, I've noticed I'm doing this more often, starting things and forgetting where I was going with it. But obviously we're going to continue the post-Mishar playthrough, and I kind of like it when I forget what the overall goal was, because it gives me a chance to sort of maybe rethink a couple of the ideas that I had. I mean, normally at the end of a cast, I especially actually went quite a bit later last week, so that didn't quite turn out the way it was supposed to. But I don't know. It gives me a chance to think a little bit about what I thought I wanted to do, and I get to sort of view it from sort of a fresh glance, saying it's like, okay, so I knew I sort of wanted to do, X, but was that actually the best idea? So, and that's I think probably most of you have probably been watching long enough now that, this is sort of how I generally approach Stellaris, full stop. I try to think a little bit about, what's the best way to put this? I try to think about what I'm doing will, how that serves my immediate goals, and then on top of that to think about how it will sort of affect the game, let's say a year or two out, and then also how that will affect how that'll affect maybe the balance of things. So you'll recall I finally went into a big war, and what that translated into was the Han-Mur Interplanetary Alliance sort of rejecting any kind of alliance with me, or even sort of a semblance of anything but a rivalry. And it gobbled up a whole bunch of the Hulfir sovereign state. Now, the way things are going with them right now, they're not an enemy to be feared, and yet it's entirely possible that I could sort of wake up and find that they're quite a bit stronger than I thought they would be, and they're not as easy to take out as before. So there's a few things that I'll sort of plan as far as the overall politics of the game are concerned. So one thing to keep in mind is that I'm definitely a superpower, possibly even a hyperpower in this game, which is good. But it carries with it the challenge that... Jesse Quill, thank you very much for that, host. At 66 viewers, I'm thinking Twitch is telling stories. Hey, there's all the names. So we have got Jesse Quill, D Raven, The Eyes of Sin 92, Blaster 1, Yancey, Yorkshire Bastard, thank you very much for the follow. Where are we? I don't know, you're in some trolls Twitch chat. Projectile 97, thank you very much for coming along. All right, so we're talking about the start of Stellaris. Ali8 Girl, thank you very much for coming along as well. I like recognizing Jesse Quill's Raiders. One big thing about it was some troll's hole. No unbidden yet. No, Beta Zion. Already just got quills. Yeah, one thing I do sort of like about Jess's raids is she does take the time to to incentivize it. Obviously, if you guys don't like me, and who can blame you, there's nothing keeping you here. But I do kind of want to make sure that there's acknowledgement for the effort, and that you get your quills. So, we'll talk a little bit about the politics, and then we'll talk about how I'm going to deal with all of it. So, because I went to war, overall, I'm not too happy with what the result of it was. I don't know if it's a misstep because I couldn't really have anticipated what it was going to be, but basically I wound up with like 4 or 5 planets in the Jesnax Stellar Imperium. The Juven hegemony took the opportunity to also sort of step on the Jesnax. So they're definitely very weak for their where we found them previously. I'm not too concerned about them sort of jumping up and being a problem. But the thing is, what I did with doing that war was I set in motion a point where all of a sudden a whole bunch of new alliances and a bunch of sort of betrayals happened. And the biggest one would be the Hanmur Interplanetary Alliance. Sort of took the opportunity to break off friendly relations with me, friendly relations with the Holfir sovereign nations, and they sort of took a big land grab, thinking that because my navies were taking care of my neighbors to the north, I wouldn't really do anything about their aggression down here. So the thing is now, when I take a look at sort of the biggest threats, we've got the Hanmur, the Spuxlak, and I mean, obviously the 2 fallen empires, but those, I mean, I'm not going to tangle with those, so I won't worry too much about that. So what I kind of want to do here, the smartest thing for me to do would be to put the Hanmur in their place once I have the opportunity available. Again, I'm not too worried about an individual entity kind of coming after me. You'll notice even the stagnant ascendancies, the best that they can say is that their fleet power is superior. And this, keep in mind that their naval capacity is inferior, so I might be able to make up for my lack of power with raw numbers. But that's also not something I would necessarily want to learn the hard way, let's say. So let me just take a quick second here. Eyes of Sin says, it was vaguely mentioned that you streamed this during the charity event, so you gave me a follow and didn't expect to have the pleasure of tuning in so soon. I'm very happy that you did that, Eyes of Sin. You missed the last 2 weeks of streams. Who did you go to war with? So the intention originally was to go to war with the Jesnax to cut them down, knowing that the Oxbraxi would also be brought in. The Juven hegemony sort of opportunistically declared war on the Jesnax as well, but as soon as I rivaled the Jesnax, these guys, the United Jazagen Authority, basically allied with them, and so it was a 3-on-1 war. So unfortunately, the plan was to take these guys out because they were protecting these guys, and then I just sort of gobble them up. As it turned out, it didn't turn out. It didn't work out that way. So as a result, I triggered a whole bunch of chain reactions. So we've got a couple of things that we can do to sort of. It's not even the question of even the scales so much as make sure that we continue to keep things in our favor. But we will work. We'll work those things out. I'll just quickly catch up with chat. But yeah, Eyes of Sin, I don't know if you've ever played any of the other Paradox grand strategy games, but they have a few. So there is Crusader Kings 2, there's Europa Universalis 4, there's Victoria 2, which is a bit older, and one of their more recent releases was Hearts of Iron 4. Now these are big, nerdy strategy games. They do a really good job of sort of depicting the eras that they're set in. So Crusader Kings 2 has a lot of involvement between sort of the vassal and the liege, and sort of the individual politics between these different factions. The Europa Universalis 4 is a little bit more about the nation state and just sort of blobbing out into a big powerful nation. Stellaris is really interesting because it's the first non-historical one that they've done, at least that I know of, certainly the first modern one. And I think the how do I put it? I think the thing that really intrigues me about this game are two things. One, it's all about discovery. So many of the game's mechanics are sort of built towards discovery and exploration. And their approach to dealing with science fiction is, rather than spending a bunch of time doing like world building and otherwise just kind of trying to make it so that sort of, I don't know, you have all of these, you know, you're supposed to sort of know all these different kingdoms that emerged, and you know, like, so if you play a Dune game, right, you need to know who the Atreides are and who the Harkonnen are and why they don't like each other and what's Dune, and you know, why is Dune important, and okay, so why does the spice do this, so on and so forth. And if you're playing a strategy game, like, you know, it's all well and fun to like play StarCraft and stuff like that, but like sometimes, and the cinematics are really cool, but like sometimes you just want to play the game, right? Like, you know, creative writing exercises are fun, but you like sometimes you just need to get into it. And so what they did was they created this big sandbox that you could play in, and basically all of science fiction is in here. So if you want to play the Empire in Warhammer 40k, you can do that. If you want to play the Borg, you can do that in the next patch. If you want to play, you know, the Federation, well, I mean, you can make a Federation like in Star Trek in this game. There's really just about everything inside of this game. So it's really cool to play it this way. Thank you very much, Beta Zion. So anyways, with that out of the way, one of the ways I like to start with the game, as I was mentioning at the intro, I didn't have a ton of ideas about how I was going to, and I have a ton of ideas about what I was going to do. I sort of forgot what my plans were at the start of, or at the end of last night. So I like it when I get this way, not so much because, I mean, it makes me think that, you know, I'm like 70 years old and have got the onset of dementia, but rather, I like it because it gives me a chance to sort of reevaluate my strategies and more so play the board as it is rather than as I want it to be. So, also I see somebody's got a fancy new hairstyle, and the text that they included inside of the image doesn't actually, I can't read it, so the message will be forever lost to me. It's also worth mentioning here, guys, Jessie Quill, who hosted me, is a very dear friend. She was doing the Infectious Madness of Dr. Decker. Anyways, she is a wonderful caster. I'm trying to convince her to play Stellaris. But she is, hey, Logan, thank you very much for that resubscription. Quote, thanks for hanging. Oh, well, I didn't get to hang out that much, Jess. Just long enough to anger people. For those of you who are in Jess's chat, one of the trolls followed, so apparently I really spoke to them, and maybe they'll be back. Or was it going with this? But yeah, so in this case, I kind of get to look at the game sort of as, oh, no, I was going to talk about Jess. I'm not going to talk about the game. But I'm a little disappointed that I didn't get a chance to see as much of the of Dr. Decker. It's kind of interesting to look at it. It seems a bit like Her Story, and both of them seem like kind of the very classic adventure games where you used to like write in verbs. And there's some great stuff like in Police Quest. Like, there were these really aggressive decisions that the designers would make. And you, like, So the way that these games would work is like they'd put in sort of listening for. Sorry guys, I am going to be a little off topic on Stellaris for a bit, but this is just so I can sort of shout out Jess. But one of the things that's great about these old adventure games were like they had to like listen for certain verbs, right? So like, you know, look is an example, and then like look, and then you'd have like a noun. So and like the big thing here would be is like you might even have the right idea as to what the solution to the puzzle would be, and a lot of them were like really weird. But what you would do is like if you didn't come up with the words that the developers used for that, you'd still be out of luck. Like you'd still have to you'd have to make sure that you were writing something that the developers had in mind. So what's really funny about this is that sometimes you'd have moments like in Police Quest, you'd do like you'd go like you're maybe in a bar or something like that, and you'd do like look ground, and like the game would give you this really sarcastic little, when you're inside it's called the floor, and you're like, wait a minute, you listened for that. You knew exactly what I was looking for, and you decided to take that opportunity to lecture me about what to call the ground and inside rather than actually give me the information. So, and I mean, some of the games, I've got one in mind that I'm going to play. I'm not going to tell you what one it is, but like, actually, I heard about this one from Soren Johnson's podcast. Actually, I think I've heard of both of these, but I've seen Police Quest before. But there's Space Quest. I just said it. Okay, Space Quest 4, and in it there's time travel, and one of the puzzles is that you need to time travel back to the present, and there's a special code that you put into the time machine that will get you to the present. Now, the way that you solve that puzzle is that in the very beginning of the game, that code is on the time machine. So you need to be paying attention at the opening of the game for that code, and you need to write it down because it doesn't appear at any other point. Now, these are in the days where you could call a phone number or you could write in to get a solution for a puzzle. The solution to that puzzle is you have to look at what it is. And not only that, but somebody couldn't tell you what it was because they randomly generated it every game. So like you had to look at a moment when no reasonable person would ever think to look, and it was different every single time, which I think Soren Johnson rightly called that aggressively bad game design. But you have to admit, it did extend the playtime. So anyways, so that's the sort of stuff that I think about when... Now, I mean, I didn't play this stuff when it came out. I played a lot of this stuff because of GOG, which there's an affiliate link down below, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, this is the stuff that I'm thinking about when Jess is playing games like Dr. Decker. So... anyways, guys, so we're back to Stellaris. One thing I forgot to mention last cast, which is really interesting, is you notice we're in the Sol system. What is this? Oh, it's just my... that's just my my link. I wasn't sure if there was like a... I wasn't sure if there was like a... an attached game. Thanks, Jess. So Sol system, this is our system, and what do you know? The third planet is habitable. But what is this? It's a tomb world. A rocky world with a nitrogen-oxygen atmosphere. It is currently experiencing a nuclear winter, with dense layers of sooty aerosols in the atmosphere, high levels of surface radiation, and minimal signs of life. And the cockroaches inherited the Earth. So one of the wonderful things about Stellaris is that the fate of the Earth is random. Sometimes you will have, you'll run into the humans, and sometimes you will find a tomb world, And in this case, we blew ourselves up and the cockroaches inherited the Earth. Incidentally, we can uplift the cockroaches. So, anyways, I don't know if Sol is in every single galaxy in the game, but I always think that's a nice touch. We are definitely going to colonize Earth, by the way. We will claim it for the post-Mishars, who look a lot like humans. Oh, we will. We will. Don't worry, D-Raven. So anyways, I said about how I was going to open this up, especially for people who are new to the game. It's hard to say, we'll know how the... By the way, I never really said why you should follow Jess, but one of the reasons why I do like her playing Dr. Decker is it gives her a chance to talk a lot about story things. It's a great opportunity to see her thought process. And she's a very dear friend who I've had many conversations about many topics with, and a lot of you got to see me rant about miladies and social justice topics, even though I would not consider myself a social justice warrior of any kind. But Jess has got a very good head on her shoulders, and I really like sharing conversations with her on those kinds of topics because she tends to guide me in interesting places, if not ones that I always agree with. And so I know some of you got to see me on my more militant during her cast, but again, games like that, I like watching her play because she does a good job of sort of balancing the priority, and so I strongly recommend that you check out her channel. And again, and hopefully one day I'll convince her to play Stellaris. Now, on with the game. So, it's a little much for me to say, okay, well, you just need to do X, Y, and Z, and you'll wind up as a big blob like this. If you want to know how we got to this stage, you can go on YouTube and check out all of the previous playthroughs. But the main idea here is whenever I start off on a game of Stellaris, I usually go to my outliner, and usually the best thing for me to do is go from top to bottom. Now, I was talking a little bit about the politics of the area, so one thing I will do is just say there's two priorities that I have. One, I have sort of a near-term goal of just gobbling up these planets because they're just an easy way for me to absorb some more territory. That's just purely opportunistic on my part. And I mean, what it'll do is it'll sort of take out sort of one front, and what it'll do is, I mean, unless I want to tangle with these guys, there's not a whole lot that's sort of upsetting the continuity of my empire. And a lot of desirable territory goes into my possession. There's not really going to be a way that any of these enemies can go and colonize these planets. So I've more or less secured all of the resources I want there, and anything else is just going to be annexing enemies. And so that means that I can tend to focus my navies more so to the south. Now, the thing is, I'd really like to take these. These are acquisitions. These are things that will make me a little bit stronger and give me just more to work with. But in terms of cutting down an enemy, realistically, Han Moor is my bigger priority. So sometimes, I've had my eye on these planets for a while. That's what the original war was about. But it's better for me to take these guys down a peg while they're still sort of picking up the pieces after the big war. So what we're going to do, I do remember you, Armor 87. I also remember you from private messages. So realistically, if I can, I want to start a war with these guys as early as possible, even if that means delaying conflict with these guys. But this is an easy way for me to check. So under diplomacy, the United Jazgian Authority, I will not be able to do that until 2326, so that's 3 years. And then because these guys broke a non-aggression pact, I cannot declare war on them until 2327. So basically I have a year to sort of pummel these guys and then direct my ships down south. Incidentally, Eyes of Sin was talking about highly intelligent cockroaches as a efficient warrior. I know they're not intelligent yet, but they are irradiated, which makes them able to survive Tomb Worlds, and apparently gives them long life. They are adaptive, and they have a preference for tomb rolls. All right. Well, I can definitely... We'll put the monolith down, and the cockroaches will learn space travel. Give it time, guys. Give it time. So whenever I play the game, we talked about sort of overall goals, which is I want to make sure when I can that I humble any potential challengers, and also that I opportunistically gobble up planets from potential rivals. So this means that my biggest target is on the Hanmur, although opportunistically I will probably take on the Jazgians first. And it's nice because I'm going to have like a huge fleet that I just, crush them with. Next up, what I do is I take a look at all of my planets and make sure they're always doing something. So here we've got maximum population, and we've got, there's no more improvements we can do on the buildings. So we're good there. On Chiata, which don't like us very much. These are the people who we took over. Right now they are in a state of chemical bliss, so we're paying fairly heavily in terms of minerals for this. And they're still not being, they're not very efficient because they are in a state of chemical bliss. I should take a quick look. So really it's the armies that are keeping this place in line still. Now, a lot of that's going to be driven by the fact that they were conquered. So let's take a look here. Happiness 22, Solitary is part of that, and recently conquered is 40% of that. So I don't know how long the recently conquered trait lasts. I know chemical bliss is going to last 10 years, but basically we're going to have to wait until these guys are no longer conquered to do anything. I'm just accepting that. That's going to be the state of the world for a while. At some point I might want to consider building farms, but of course we've got a huge surplus of food, so I'm not too worried about them not working these tiles very well. Of course I also don't have any minerals, so this is a little bit more of just sort of future planning. Next up we've got Uri. So here we've got a case of this is a conquered planet. So one thing that I might want to do, I've already got some migration going on here, which is great. But what I might also want to do is I might want to start building some androids, basically to make sure that I'm, this planet's getting populated with things that maybe aren't so resentful at being, being conquered. Actually, it looks like these ones that have been born are, these ones that have been born aren't as resentful of being conquered. That can't be right. Well, this guy's not upset at being conquered, so cool. That's good to know. So I don't need to worry so much about the ones that have been born into this state of affairs. Next up for this planet here, not a lot of upgrades that I can do, and again, it's sort of full up, so we're fairly good in terms of these individual planets, it looks like. The only one that really hasn't sort of been dealt with is Uri. Now, there's going to be a couple, there's also going to be Sol, which we colonize. I'm going to have to maybe think a little bit about what I do with that planet here, but we're more or less okay in terms of where these planets are, and we're also upgrading all of the spaceports. So the original plan here was to take all of my spaceports up to level 4, do as many corvettes and destroyers as possible, then upgrade to level 5, put in some cruisers, upgrade battleships, and so on and so forth. Realistically, it's going to take me a very, very, very long time even to get to the cap with my naval capacity, but we'll live with that. So, how long do you have by the yellow triangle on the tile? Let's take a look. Uh, 988 days, so I guess in about 3 years. So just in time for the next war. All right. So, I mean, I've already spent a lot of the money. What I might do... So one thing that'll suck for my resources will be to do a little bit of hunting. Because every time I take the fleet out of dock, I wind up paying for it in terms of energy and minerals. And yet I think it would be a good idea to start cleaning out some of these blockages. So we've got the Ruby Guardians, and then we had Sapphire Lurkers, and then there was the Spectre here, and... Oh wait, no, there was only one Spectre. And then there's... Wait. there's more than a few Leviathans here then. And I think on this planet there was the fortress. Anyways, I might want to consider taking on one of the Leviathans because you tend to get some more power doing that, but we'll see about that at the moment. Anyways, we're unpausing. I don't have a whole lot of other things to do on these planets just because I've got kind of colony ships. Everything's kind of already set up from the previous game. But what I am going to be doing here is researching Cybrex Alpha. This is going to be a bit of a cool one for me because we're going to be able to rebuild these ruined ring sections. This is I love the fact that I got this. I love the fact that I got this history, because it's basically a story of like a rogue or not a rogue AI, but basically a servitor race that that sort of went and it kind of conquered it tried to conquer the universe. And it's just one of these nice little stories where it's some foreshadowing in terms of what our species has gone through, because we've slowly surrendered our biological traits, and instead we've moved on to these well, we're post Mishar right now, so we're sort of moving on to this part machine species, and then what'll kind of be happening next is we're probably going to put so we've already sort of replaced the Mishar in terms of ability by building the androids, and then sort of the next logical step will be to kind of upload our consciousness into these android bodies ourselves and basically abandon our biological selves. So in this case, like I said, it's a little bit of a foreshadowing in terms of the story that we've been telling about this species. Quantum destabilizer. So quantum destabilizers agitate the local quantum field, disturbing sensitive targeting equipment aboard hostile ships. Oh, that's right. We opted that weakening the enemy was slightly better than the other options I had. So can do plasma throwers and barrier point defenses, which are not going to take that long. I really do like extended sensor ranges. And I mean, the bonus energy is nice, especially because I keep hitting the cap quite a bit. But I'm really not hurting for energy overall. I think information is always kind of key to me, so I will go for Voidcraft right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move Martin Morris after the 16 months. I'm going to move them onto this job here. So advanced sensors that rely on rotating tachyon beams to detect ship movements even at extreme distances. What faction would be closest to the Federation from Star Trek? Are you talking about in this game, D Raven? Because I don't think any are. Oh, by the way, sorry guys, I need to bring up my. I know we haven't done a lot of gameplay. I need to bring up my notepad because I had a big list of ships I wanted to build. So I wanted to build 165 corvettes and 126 destroyers, but for some reason I have 241. Okay, I'm gonna go with my lower numbers. Also keep in mind, D Raven, I've never seen Star Trek, so. Well, honestly, Beta Zion. I probably said your name incorrectly the first time, but oh. So I wanted to build a frontier outpost. Where? I was at Belloir. I don't quite get why I'm assuming there was something... Ah, yes. That's not surprising, actually. Okay. So I'm going to use the opportunity to get my construction ship to build a few other things. What's our mandate? We don't have any right now, so let's get them to... In this case, I'm not going to be going for efficiency anymore. I'm just going to build... I'm just going to build where I can get some resources down. But yeah, so one of the most rewarding things about casting for me is when I play something and it inspires people either to buy the game or to play it themselves. And I know, obviously, in your case, Betazyne, you're familiar with this title already. But it's no less rewarding that, you know, it's like when I used to... So I used to do reviews, not in the sense... Like, I sometimes did them on websites, but, like... I'd review movies for people, and I always knew I'd done a really good review when somebody kind of was silent for a little while, and they're like, oh man, I really want to watch that movie again. Because that's what this whole thing's about, right? It's sharing the games with people and hopefully exposing people to some new titles. So, anyways, the Cybrex Central Nexus. It would seem that the Cybrex reevaluated their galactic crusade against organic life at some point during its 17th year. Whether this change was prompted by the losses on the battlefield or an ideological shift in the network consensus, we may never know, but for whatever reason, the Cybrex decided to halt their campaign. They began a slow withdrawal that lasted for nearly a century, until they eventually vanished completely. We now know that they retreated to this system, where they had constructed a massive ring world designed to house their entire civilization. They isolated themselves here for several millennia until an independent explorer chanced upon the system and spread its location to the rest of the galaxy. The news that the dreaded Cybrex had been found again prompted several neighboring powers to organize a massive military expedition which bombarded the Cybrex ring world into rubble. Strangely, the Cybrex system seems to have offered no resistance. Strangely, the Cybrex seemed to have offered no resistance whatsoever. Fascinating. So we get basically 10,000 Unity for this. We gain 500 Engineering, 2,000 Energy Credits, and we have now finished the story of the Cybrex. And this gives us... Oh, achievement unlocked, what came before. So this gives us an opportunity to extend our supremacy. We've already decided to go down this path, so we're going to decide on, one, what our sort of immediate term goal is, and then we'll also kind of decide what our long-term goal is. So it seems that bonuses for Unity per neighboring rival is a really good trait to have. So we probably want to prioritize the great game if we can. By the way, Jess, what's your favorite movie so far? Admiral skills increased by 2 is nothing to, to sneeze at, but again, just the Unity output is always so good. Warrior mindset, army damage increased by 25%. Not bad, but we usually try to overwhelm people with our armies anyway. The Seed Planet War Demand cost reduced by 25%. That's going to be huge when we start going after these the Han Moor. And finally, ship build speed increased by 15% and naval capacity increased by 10%. So it's a fairly obvious call here, right? The Rite of Conquest to reduce our Seed Planet is... That's what we want to go for right now. It's going to bring us closer to the great game. And even if Warrior Mindset isn't really that big of a deal for us, like, we sort of know that that's going to lead us down to the path that matters more. Maybe by the end with Master Shipwrights, we'll be able to take some advantage of that. But right now, I'm not looking for any more excuses to spend money on my my fleets. So Rite of Conquest. The ancient Rite of Conquest is a universal truth that is no less relevant now than it was when our civilization established dominion over our homeworld. Woe to the vanquished. So this is going to give us a nice boost to our ability to make war. And then this is going to pound me in terms of my minerals, but I am going to start cleaning the galaxy out of undesirables. So let's just... This fleet is enormous compared to what I'm going to be taking on, but I don't know. I just like showing off how strong I am, so. So was Full Metal Jacket your favorite then, or? The only drawback here is that this is really expensive to to restore. But we'll work on it. In this case, I'll just knock out some more ships if I can. Again, this is going to be one of the nice things about this is if I all of a sudden have an urgent need for resources, I can cancel out this queue and be in good shape. But so I talked a little bit, so we've got a few people here who are familiar with the game, and I know Eyes of Sin mentioned that she'd heard that I'd played this game. As for the rest of you, anybody else here who's familiar with Stellaris at all? Is there a theming to the movies that I review, or do you review them broadly? Can't say that you've seen Full Metal Jacket. So Eyes of Sin, I would review, so when I was doing it for a website, it would be whenever they requested me to do something. And I mean, it had to be a movie I'd want to watch, but like I'd be happy to do a review, you know, on anything that sort of interested me. When I do it for friends, like just a basic recommendation, it's usually just the conversation will go somewhere. So like in terms of, it's a little bit like how I play Stellaris, right? Which is something will happen, a story event will come up, or I'll talk a little bit about the plan that I have for the species, and we'll say, hey, isn't this a neat idea? Did you know? Or this is a little bit like that time in history when, or so on and so forth. So a good example would be Gladiator. I'll read this story bit first, and then I'll kind of talk a little bit more about it. The strong magnetic field around Nibiru Prime has always caused some problems with electronic instruments on the surface, but recently the effect on our computers has been especially notable. So far, it is unknown what has caused the flare-up, although we suspect it to be temporary. So I talk, in the case of Gladiator, there's sort of this mapping that I made in terms of Maximus's journey to the Plato's Republic, and some of the ideas in terms of the ideal ruler, the ideal sort of life, the way to live your life. And to me, like, I think it's a very conscious decision in that film to sort of take on those ideas. Even if it isn't a conscious decision, I think it makes for a very fun experience watching that movie. But yeah, that was, I mean, in that case, it was more just, you know, okay, so we've all seen this movie, or if you haven't seen this movie, here is what it's about, quote unquote, in terms of like the plot, the things that happen. And then sometimes I'll try and talk about what the movie is about, as in, you know, here are the ideas that are going into the movie. Yeah, everything I do is a tangential thing. You love all of Arlie Ermey's scenes. He was supposed to be an on-site coach for the actual sergeant, but he sucked, so Ermey became the lead actor. I didn't know that they'd cast it, but I did know that he impressed quite a bit in terms of his material, and so he was effectively allowed to sort of write his own lines, basically. Slowly whittling down my quota. All right, another colony ship, and I think it was Marfak. Yes. No. Nope. And we're at an energy cap, so I'm just gonna hold on.
For lack of a better word, is good.
You're like Morgan Freeman to me.
The world is a fine place and worth fighting for. I agree with the second part. Does anybody remember what movie that's from? Thank you so much for that donation, Yorkshire. It will go to good use. I got asked, was it today or was it during, I can't remember anymore. Somebody brought up the idea of, doing audiobooks. I would very much like to do that. Whether or not I get the opportunity to is another question. But... So the question I have here is, do I not give up any resources and build on the energy, or do I give up the one mineral in favor of boosting my output? What I could do, I could get a bonus to... So my reasoning here is that I will confer a bonus to this mineral resource tile, as well as an energy tile, as well as a food tile, by placing it here. Whereas here I get an energy and a food. I think this will be the call. Well, that's fine, Eyes of Sin, because I like a lot of the stuff that I really like tends to be a bit older. Like I don't mind modern movies, but like I haven't seen everything that Orson Welles has ever made. So like I'm not going to get too torn up if I don't get a chance to see, Guardians of the Galaxy. And, I'm never going to get tired of Stanley Kubrick movies. So, you can always put on a new one for me, or not a new one. He's not making any new ones, but like you can always put one on and I'll always watch it to the very end. So it's, I don't know. There's lots of opportunities to watch some more classic stuff, as long as you go for the right classics. I mean, there's also crappy classics, but anyway, let's take a quick second here with the curators. So we're already getting them aid with the research. I guess we've already got the bonus, so... Didn't offer any comment on how my fleet would go against it. Great. Let's try that again. Here's this mighty fleet comparable to some of the greatest armadas recorded in the annals of the Curator Order. Victory is certainly within your reach. All right, so we're happy there. The Wraith... All right. So the Wraith is a little trickier to deal with. I think I'm going to hold off on that, but I don't have anything to spend on them right now. So let's see if we can go for the Artisan Troop. I could organize a festival. Yorkshire Bastard, thank you very much for the subscription as well. Thank you so much. Ponce, how you doing? All right, we've got a few people I need to shout out here. Organizing a festival of that scale would require all of our artists. I'm not crazy about spending... I can't afford it anyway. I'm not crazy about spending that right now. And the art piece is minerals, so we can't do anything with that. All right. By the way, guys, I sent out a quick message to look into doing some emotes. So I am starting to work a bit on actually giving you guys some things for subscription. So right now you're all doing this out of the goodness of your heart, but I really do appreciate it. Isaacson has got a... See, Isaacson, I think you'd really like this game, because this game is all about creating little backstories and little ideas. Like this. Can you pay me to read all the books on my shelf? I mean, you already did pay me for headphones, which I still haven't bought yet. And guys, I want to take a minute here and mention... Oh, I still need to spend this money. You know what? I think I'm just going to go for the good old edicts. So let's find the highest science output. And we will declare... Wait, that's influence. Oh, that's right. I know what I was going to do. Let's now talk to the traders. All right. So for this one, we'll do 3 hits of this. 1, 2, 3. All right, and we'll immediately plow that back into our navy. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Only 156 corvettes and 116 destroyers left until I build the navy that I want. If you want to see the cutest species in this game, Sin, that would probably be... Oh. Did they get conquered? Well, we've got Snalians. That's nice. Well, you know, I probably have one on one of my desert worlds. That is not the one I was looking for. All right, this might be a little harder for me to do. I've got a couple of places I can fix this. All right, impulse thrusters are done. I am eventually going to talk about Ponce. Ponce, I knew him originally as a League of Legends caster, and I was sort of deputized in his stream because I think he was getting overwhelmed with trolls at some point. It's been a while since I've been able to spend some really quality time in there because, of course, he's in a different time zone than I am. But he is I met him at my very first sort of Twitch meetup, and he is somebody who I think is, especially if you guys sort of like my stuff, I'm obviously a little stumbling around a little bit in terms of my content tonight. But one thing that's maybe worth mentioning is Ponce, he's not only a League of Legends streamer, but he does play it, and he is very calm. And he is calm because he realizes that it's just a game and that getting angry, 1, takes energy, and 2, is not a recipe to win. So I think for those of you who kind of like a slightly more meditative approach to these sorts of things, Ponce is one of these people who can keep his head while he plays a MOBA, in addition to being somebody who has just generally got a good head on his shoulders and is a wonderful conversationalist, in addition to being a very fun drunk. So definitely somebody to check out. He's one of these people who can actually make make a living doing Twitch. And he is no longer just a League streamer. He also does Dark Souls extremely well. But he also, I mean, he does a ton of different things. So I strongly recommend that you guys check him out, especially if you find my, especially if you tend to find my hours not working perfectly. So El Canoe, thank you very much for that host. How are you doing? Let me just take a quick second here. I think what I'm going to do here is the Durosteel armor. Strong yet flexible material is capable of withstanding severe punishment. It serves well as ship armor. 1, because it only takes 33 months. It does help the survivability of my ships. And then, I mean, some of these other ones are good. You know, mega cannons, Ripperata cannons, and stuff like that. But in this case, it's relatively inexpensive, and it is actually one of these things that I've been having some problems with, which is the survivability of ships. So, in the meantime, not content to let me just sit down and play games idly. We have got the legendary Elkanu in the channel. He is also a very talented caster. He's somebody who I have a lot of fun watching. Hang on, I did this wrong. I want Martin Morris on this. And ideally, I want a level 5 materials person, which we do have on the Zephyr, which means we can put somebody else on the Zephyr. This is a nice thing about having a really full roster. Anyways, Elkanu, it feels like it's been a while since I've caught one of your casts, Elkanu. What have you been playing lately? I saw you doing Tyranny. I actually watched a little bit of your Tyranny stream, but that was a little while ago. Have you done something since Tyranny tonight or recently? Elkanu is a French caster, so he's a lot of fun to watch. He's got a great personality and a great sense of humor. So one of the things that I run into a problem with is when I haven't seen somebody in a while, I don't like pretending that I have like seen them more than I have. So I can't tell you exactly what he has been up to, but he's somebody who's a lot. Oh, you know what? I was supposed to check if you did a trade for me as well. I will try and do that before I finish, or after I finish the cast tonight, Elkanu, because I know we talked about doing a trade for cards as well. But anyways, he is a great caster. He's one of the few people who I've wound up buying a game off of just for like watching their cast. And he is continuing to grow and improve as a talent. So another person who I did Tyranny Saturday, Tyranny Sunday, Syndrome Saturday, Dark Souls 2 on Thursday, and Dishonored 2 on Tuesday. Cool. I know I've been missing your Dark Souls casts then if it's Thursdays. I've been trying to get to museums and I haven't been able to. So, Esteemed Chancellor Ilmesfen, a decade ago, the Mishar Cooperative pledged support to the Artisan Troupe, and so you have. The time of your patronage is coming to an end, but we would be remiss not to ask. Would you care to renew your subscription to the finest arts and crafts in the galaxy? I mean, this is just like a Jesse's Will subscription, isn't it? Another 1,000 energy credits. Design, thank you very much for that follow. All right. As we slouch on to Bethlehem, let's speed this up a little bit. Yeah, I actually haven't played any of the Dishonored games yet, but I want to, and I own them. All right, guys, I always love these moments. Let's make this proper too. Turn the volume up.
Colonization in progress. Hostile fleet engaged. Situation log updated. Situation log updated.
We can slow it down so you can really appreciate. And you all know where we're heading now. Oop. It's a lot easier to do with a controller. Beta Zion, there is a ton of weapons on this, because one of the things I'm doing is I'm trying to use attrition to get through some of my fleet, but I'll show it in a minute here. Hanmoor has broke off the non-aggression pact. Good to know. Sorry to blind you there, chat. I'm trying to get a good angle. Leverage, it's mostly just because, well, it's in the way right now, and it's going to attack any of my science ships if I get in range of it, so look at that lazy dreadnought. Also, it's just a chance for me to show you a whole bunch of laser effects. Get ready for an explosion. We'll put the pulsar in the background.
Situation log updated. System survey complete.
Nice moment for the music to end, too. The Star Nation, formerly known as the glorious Jessenax hegemony, has been destroyed by its enemies. How this will affect the political climate in the galaxy remains to be seen. Where was this? Oh, it's these guys. So I think they just got reincorporated into the Stellar Imperium. The Star Nation, formerly known as the glorious Jessenax hegemony, has been destroyed by its enemies. How this? Yeah, I know. That or whatever the hell was inside there, but I'm not too worried about these. All right. So we lost 1 destroyer, 26 corvettes, and clearly we did not lose our dreadnought. Otherwise, you would hear me screaming at the ends of human hearing. So let's go heal up. So as far as my corvettes, let's take a random one. So these ones are packing 2 units of advanced railguns and a UV laser. My current designs, when I'm building new stuff, I've just gone for the auto options. So the destroyers are packing gamma lasers and point defense. And the corvettes are gamma lasers and neutron torpedoes. Kind of curious what the cruisers... I'll be honest, I don't think I would have built... I'm not entirely sure what I would have built these this way, but I can live with it. Also, I need to reopen my outliner. We'll research the projects, and then we will survey the system. And then after we repair, we'll merge. We will heal, and then we want to take out... We'll go after the Sapphire Lurkers. So we're going to be hurting for... we're going to be hurting for energy for minerals for a while, unfortunately. Out of curiosity, so how many of you like it when I actually go into slow-mo in combat like that? Like, I can keep doing that, or I can just let the combat go normally, because we kind of... There's no suspense about what's going to happen, right? So...
Colony established.
Also, I can't believe I've lost one of the Leviathans. I know there's the enigmatic fortress somewhere. All right, 1, 2... Anybody interested in seeing how that turns out? Oh my god, so the last time I played this, there was a bug that kept me from getting to the end of this. So, for those of you who don't know, this is a free DLC that was written by Alexis Kennedy while he was kind of having his gap year, as he likes to put it, I think. So he's currently making Cultist Simulator. By the way, guys, am I able to... So who here... You know what, I'm just going to put out this link right now, because I would love it if you guys could give some support for this thing. So the guy who wrote the storylet that we're about to go on to is making a new game called Cultist Simulator. And we actually played this on the cast before. And I would love it if you guys haven't done this already to attach your Twitter or your Facebook or your Tumblr, anything that you want to. There's going to be a Kickstarter for this thing starting in 18 days. And we're looking to get 250 people to sort of announce the Kickstarter when it launches. And right now the social reach is 301,000 people. But every single person helps. It costs you nothing other than the fact that, you know, you'll be putting out a little bit of advertising on September 1st. But you're going to see that this guy knows how to write. And so he founded the company Fail Better, which made Fallen London and Sunless Sea, and is going to be releasing Sunless Skies at the end of this month into early access. So he's a guy who's definitely responsible for some really interesting and some original games. Oh, that's awesome, Eyes of Sin. Thanks a lot. So you can play the alpha of Cultist Simulator right now. But basically, he went and he worked for Telltale. He went and worked for BioWare. He went and worked for Paradox. And I feel like I'm missing one other... Oh, he consulted on Burden of Command, which is another indie that's coming out. But if you guys are interested in Horizon Signal kind of stuff, he's got a new game that's coming out, and definitely it's important for people to support stuff like this. Just because he is somebody you've heard of to have made a game does not mean that he automatically gets dump trucks of money for his projects. So I definitely strongly recommend that you guys click on that link. And yep, he absolutely did. And if you want, you can check him out on Twitter at Alexis Kennedy. Really very talented writer, not just in terms of game material, but also in terms of his like just the ideas that he expresses. He's actually got a really great little article for Eurogamer, I think it was Eurogamer, on punching Nazis. And I think it was timely given some of the reaction to some of the stuff that happened in Charlottetown. But anyways, on with the event. An alert communications officer has identified what appears to be a faint signal, almost lost in the gamma ray flashes from a black hole. A hole here, faint but unmistakably artificial. This raises intriguing possibilities for scientists. So the Gathari Maelstrom issues a special project, Analyze the Horizon Signal. Oh, and I've already got a research station there. Well, they've got a spark of genius, which I feel bad about, but...
Colony established. Colony established.
So the main reason for filling out these colonies, one drawback is that's putting a lot of strain on my my sector. Where is this? Oop.
Construction complete.
So if you want to see what's going on there,
Survey complete.
right now, you can see that they're sort of at zero in terms of minerals, just because they're spending so much to try to build things kind of back up to where they need to be. But I'm not too upset about that state of affairs, to be honest. I sort of knew I was signing up for that. So here I'm going to build mining stations. This is mostly so I can capture the living metal resource. That's going to be really good for repairing my ships.
Debris analyzed.
And the idea here is that over time they're going to be able to recapture some of the the losses in terms of productive capability.
Progress. Special project complete.
The Horizon Signal, Gravity is Desire. Science officer Ilmas Weck reports that the signal was unexpectedly easy to decipher, but their team has spent considerable time confirming that it's not a hoax. It is repeating a half-coherent message in the Misharan language, something like a poem. It repeats the phrases, gravity is desire, and time is sight. It encodes coordinates near the black hole, and it ends with a dedication by name to the science officer, who adds dispassionately that they have that they have confirmed that the signal has been radiating into interstellar space since before their birth. In fact, the signal may predate our civilization. Fascinating. Let's send the vessel to the coordinates. Or, this is a trick or a trap. Log it and move on.
Situation log updated.
The Horizon Signal, the Worm. As the YDS Conobax approaches the coordinates specified by the signal, it begins to report spatial distortions and a curious lensing effect, a rich stream of valuable data. Then the transmission becomes distorted. What happens next is analyzed exhaustively. The excitement in Science Officer Ilmas Weck's voice tautens to fear as the ship's hull struggles under increasingly exotic conditions. The ship triggers a distress call. Ilmas Weck cries out, "The worm!" Or perhaps, "The worm!" Then all transmissions end. No trace of the YDS Conobax is ever found. No further transmissions. No debris. And the space of those coordinates is innocuous and utterly free of distortions. But the data that they sent back has advanced our physics research dramatically. Perhaps it was worth their lives. We learn and we go on. 3,000 physics research gained. And you wouldn't notice it, but we are down 1 science ship, so... Something has reached out to us from a place where time and space are shrunk to a knot. It desires us. Okay, I guess I gotta get a new scientist then.
Construction complete. Colony established.
I didn't know I had 2 construction ships. Alright, so Iolam is one that I'm responsible for, unfortunately. Which means I can't be as reckless with my minerals at the moment.
Debris analyzed.
So let's start by clear... Oh, wow. This doesn't have a whole lot of... This doesn't have a whole lot of stuff blocking the way. Alright, I really did need to start... So let's start looking for some strategic resources that I haven't developed yet. Alright, the Vagabond's been built, so we'll send in the next clone. Zir looks to be relatively young. In this case, I'm just going to set them on automated exploration because there's not a whole lot for me to do right now. I don't know. I thought it was cute. Alright, so I think one thing I'm going to do before I go too far... Jesus Christ, there's a lot of upgrades I need to do. So we'll build a new spaceport just because that's how we do things here. And I'm going to see if there's any gaps that I can fill in terms of... You know, this planet's actually kind of filling in nicely.
Debris analyzed. Research complete.
Let's build at least one synthetic here. I mean, the thing is, the synthetics are so much better at everything these guys can do, so... Alright, regenerative hull tissue is now done. So, next up, Army health. Anything that's like just a percentage bonus I'm not too crazy about. I am going to do the extra hydroponics farm, which is a little counterintuitive. The main reason for me doing this is because I will be able to sort of navigate around and let's see if I get a good example of this. So right now we've got a surplus of 1. That's probably not a great example of it, but... And all these other ones are probably running deficits. Well, this wouldn't be a bad example. So the farm on this planet is actually at max capacity. Oh, the Star Nation, formerly known as the Jessenax Imperium, has been destroyed by its enemies.
I would never want to belong to any club that would have someone like me for a member.
Mrr. Thank you very much for following. Boon4G, thank you very much for that follow. Star Nation, formerly known as the Jessenax Imperium, wasn't... This has to be some faction or something like that that's getting gobbled up. Oh, and we're going to be able to go to war soon. In 3 months. So I think what we're going to do... This is one of the reasons why I love having long ranges on sensors, is it tells you exactly what you're up against. So, for the armies... Jesus! Right, that's not the garrison, but... Let's just say, I mean... See, if I made synthetics, I'll crush these guys easily. But basically, we've got 12 garrisoned armies. So I want to make sure I build those. Omagus I don't have information on. Österreich. 12 garrison armies. $11 garrisons. So basically I need like 12 armies each. And because I don't understand what moderation means, robotic assault armies, android assault armies. Yeah. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Planet 1 down. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 2 planets down. Why am I not recruiting? Because I don't have any money. All right, let's double check that recruitment effort. Was it? All right, I've got 4 there. So we'll just hold off. I mean, this is going to take a while for them to build up anyway, so I should have started this a lot earlier, but... And the ISS Astute apparently is out of jobs. In a pinch, I don't need to quite be so crazy with the armies. Like I'm already building a superior force in terms of their ability to kind of crack heads, but I don't know. It's just sort of nice to know that if I know I have these reserves to build on, you know, it's makes me feel warm and comfortable at night. For
Tile blocker cleared.
I need 2 more of these.
Colony established. System survey complete.
Enjoy your chocolate trifle, Poon4G. The unstable tectonic plates of Marfac Secundus have violently shifted once again. Reports on the damage to the colony are just starting to arrive. Well, we'll be able to fix it if anything bad happens. One thing I forgot to do right away was build up a monument, so let's get these out of the way. I've got a monument there. And let's switch this out because I want as much unity generating as I possibly can. The recent earthquake, which staggered our colony on Marfac Secundus, caused no damage. What annoys you is that a civilization with laser and goes top-tiered plasma cannon tech will have equivalent ground troops. You know, Varenki, I think I kind of get your point on that. I think one of the things I'll say in general, I think even Paradox wouldn't really defend the way ground combat works right now. I think that's a area where they can improve, just full stop. I sort of understand it from a gameplay mechanic sort of view, like, you know, if you've done, like, you'd either have to increase the cost or sort of weaken overall what you'd have to sort of weaken overall what the effect of the military technology would do is. But I agree, like, it's weird that you have a technologically superior race which for whatever reason is still using like rocks and sticks to, you know, to attack someone. Welcome, by the way. Alright, the black hole in the Getheri maelstrom is active again. Once again, a looping signal flickers in the darkness at the edge of normal space, but this time there's an acoustic message encoded in the signal. It sounds very like Ilmus Weck's voice. What was shall be, Ilmus Weck intones. What shall be was. Then the same coordinates as the first signal. The coordinates where Ilmus Weck was lost, what the media has christened the exit point, and then they say the name Monak Va. Monak Va volunteers to go, permit it. Permit them to go, but rig their ship's drive to detonate, or not this time, ignore it. I don't know, chat. Seems kind of dangerous, don't you? This intelligent and materialist society might consider the risks to the well-being. It's a black hole, and it swallowed up a scientist, and now we're getting voices from them. This is like a ghost story. I shouldn't be going in there, right? I'm gonna get some water, and I'll leave you. I'll let you guys say what the right call is. Monak Va volunteers to go, permitted. Alright, we can go repair. You played enough Call of Cthulhu tabletop pen and paper to know where this might lead. Oh, and we are without a scientist again. Ilmus Weck the Second. Welcome aboard. Don't ask any questions about what happened to the last one. The Space Age. The alien civilization on Milsuksa has finished construction of its first interplanetary vessel in orbit of their homeworld. For better or worse, these aliens are now ready to join the galactic community, and they may now be counted among the galaxy's current spacefaring races. They are on the verge of space travel. What do you mean you don't want protectorate status? We are so invading the crap out of you. I mean, they're hegemonic imperial. I probably should have taken a look at this and tried to convert them. I'll deal with you later. Yes, Frankie. I don't think they've got a date on the new update yet, but I am very encouraged by what can come up. Oh, more energy. In this case, I'm just going to dump it all into minerals because I really need to get these fleets done at some point in the future. Oh, and you know what? We're gonna finish these. Troop recruitment. Okay, so we've got one. So that should be 10, 11, 12. Now I could have sworn I recruited a bunch of armies for all right, 11 I can work with. Actually, I'll make that for the rest of them as well. So So let me just think a little bit. 1, 2. I think I'm missing something for Omagus. Yeah, so let's make, we'll make Saya the... The big thing about this too is if I build too many androids, that's fine, because all that I do is I just move them into my next war against these guys. The horizon signal. I'm through. This time the ship is running fully automated. Monarch Va is the only crew member aboard. As it approaches the exit point, the telemetry stream fills up with fascinating data. Once again, space flexes, gravity uncoils. Monarch Va reads off the headline data, echoing the telemetry. They're commendably calm. We've sent a professional. It takes a little while for anyone to realize that there's something peculiar about the timing. Monarch Va is no longer echoing the data, they are predicting it. The telemetry disagrees, but only for a few seconds until it catches up. The monitoring team is just repeating that the prediction interval is increasing when Monarch Va says wonderingly, "I'm through." "It's dark," they add. "That's not a problem. We can live in the dark." I never thought of that. But of course we can live here forever, if the worm will only wait. At that moment the signal cuts out, and the ship disappears from our team's sensors. This is horrible! This is regrettable. This is fascinating.
Construction complete.
Isaacson, something tells me that you're really going to enjoy this story that we're about to go down. We have allowed you to look at the new batch of badasses here. We've allowed you to move about freely in our territory for too long. Today we draw the line. Okay, there, tough guy. Leave it be for now. Yeah, that's not a surprise at all. And just get them to automate that.
Construction complete.
All right. I always prioritize Unity where I can, and apparently I am utterly neglecting my resources. Oh, looks like the Juven hegemony was able to turn them into a protectorate right away. Well, so much for so much for me. I will just take them when I take the Juven hegemony. Marith Brinkman has been elected as first citizen of the Mishar Cooperative, and their mandate is orbital research. Then I will... At this point, I'm just kind of building whatever research posts I can find. Right. The native life of ILM Prime is built on an epic scale, far larger than anyone previously thought was possible for biological life. The question now in the minds of our researchers is, what is their secret, and what can we benefit from it? Proposals to study the native life in greater detail are flooding in. Proceed with the study.
Situation log updated.
In the meantime, I can't remember if I finished my...
Enemy troops landing. Special project.
Nope. Titanic life study failure. In a disastrous series of events, the scientists on ILM Prime have enraged the indigenous Titanic life. Huge creatures are rampaging across the colony, smashing everything in their path. I haven't had that happen before. I kind of want advanced after. Yeah. I've kind of waited long enough. I think we'll go for the Crystal Forge plating as much as it takes on a while.
I would never want to belong to any club that would have someone like me for a member.
Shiny, sorry, I missed that. Shiny Volpix 2424. Thank you very much for that follow. All right. Oh Jesus. That's really far out there. So the only challenge I have is that I don't think I'm going to have these things. Have a great night, Elkanu. Thanks a lot for the host as always. And I will hopefully see you soon. All right, so the fastest thing would definitely be... I think 60 time units is a little optimistic. All right. Okay, so these guys are no longer upset at being conquered. So I think there's going to be a couple policies that I change. One, we're finally going to improve the economy by taking them out of their stupor. I was actually meaning to change a few of these things. So where were they? Oh, I have 9 days before I can change that. And then I also have been meaning to change around a few of these other species, but... So, important thing is, for all the ones that had armies on them, just in order to sort of keep the peace, we will embark them. And maybe just throw them into the jaws of death. I like that idea. Rukai. I mean, one of the challenges that's going to happen is I have no assurances at all that they're still going to be peaceful when this one I'll just land them right away. I have no assurances that the peace will be maintained when oh, 'cause these are all defense armies, right? This is a bit overkill, but might as well cluster them somewhere. And I think these are sort of my main main forces I was building for the next invasion, so. Alright, well, we'll see how this goes. I suppose I could have been building some defenses too in this time. We'll try it, but I have a feeling that when I lose this, I'm just gonna... Chancellor's reign has come to an end with their election campaign promises unfulfilled. Well, that was a brief reign. Yeah, that's not going to happen. So I'm kind of curious what happens when we lose. I guess the colony just gets crushed.
Planet lost to invasion.
Failed to fend off the invaders on Islam Prime. So I'm going to have to shoot down my own spaceport too. That's funny. Okay. So, before my invasion fleets arrive and kill themselves, should also probably be building up these one. It is very hard to keep track of what I've been building.
Situation log updated.
And the new mandate, minor mandate, so all those research stations I was building are for nothing.
Research complete.
Tachyon sensors are good. Again, that's just the extra range. I don't think that gives me a view on Amagus, but... So if I go for dark matter drawing, that's a bonus to physics research, which is pretty darn strong at this point. I think I'm going to take it. I mean, there's less expensive ones for sure that I can go for, but getting a shot in the arm on physics research when I find this... I mean, finding dark matter is not going to be that hard given how much of the map I already have, so... We should be in fairly good shape.
Construction complete.
As far as that's concerned. Construction ship-wise... I guess just more research stations? I didn't think that the special resource was a research sort of a thing. All right, so these guys are just gonna hang out. Well, that guy made some fairly good progress.
Construction complete.
Horizon signal, the trine, the quine, the trine. Once again, the horizon signal in the Githari Maelstrom is active. It has upped its game. Once again, the transmission includes the exit point's coordinates. It is signed with the private comm keys of Ilmes Wek and Monak Va. But this time, it's a generative text program written in an elderly programming language that creates what appear to be love poems. Love poems directed to Ilmes Fen. They're honestly not very good love poems. But it is, our scientists agree, quite difficult to generate love poems procedurally, and quite unusual for a black hole to send love poems at all. Well, it asks nicely, send Ilmes Fen. Send Ilmes Fen with a drive rig to blow, or this is sinister and ridiculous and sinister. Let it go. Alright. It looks like we are running out of places to explore. So oddly enough, these guys have not closed off our chances to survey. Oh, that's because we don't have a scientist. So again, I'm going to go usually for the youngest one here. I also should get my governors back into shape, but one thing at a time. Clat, ethic changes. Several of our abduction teams stationed at the observation post above Clat have apparently been using thrusters of their shuttles to burn large circles and complex patterns into crop fields belonging to the primitive Oratians that are indigenous to the planet. The shuttle crews have been severely reprimanded for this prank, but the crop circles appear to have taken on some new sort of religious significance for the natives. A new religion has formed based on these patterns and is gaining popularity among the Arsarans at an alarming rate. Interesting. In the meantime, I've got some things I want to change about my... Alright, so the Jessenax will no longer get chemical bliss. I'm tempted to just do decent living standards. This will probably be a mistake. Yep, that was a mistake. I mean, the rest of them are getting decent. Why should they be different? Oh, these guys were migrants. Okay, well, we'll start by uplifting the cockroaches. What is the closest habitability to a tomb world? Let's make them like the cold. They're going to be alpine cockroaches now.
Situation log updated.
All right. Fortunately, it's only 2 planets. Oh, it's withdrawal symptoms. Yeah, I really shouldn't have made them crash like that. I didn't know they'd suffer that. Okay, well. This will probably not do what I want it to do. Let's... I don't think that's going to do too much about it, to be honest, but we'll see what happens. All right, the horizon signal, where the end comes from. This will be the end of me, Elmes Fenn says at the briefing before the launch. I know I won't come back, but I think I always knew this would happen. Whatever is in the hole has been waiting for us for a long, long time. I think it's been waiting for me since I was born. Once again, the single pilot ship approaches the exit point. Once again, space boils like a fever. Again, our sensor arrays soak up fascinating data. This time, Elmes Fenn is silent. The telemetry becomes intermittent, and then it too silent. The ship has reached the exit point. The conditions around it are returning to normal. Nothing has happened. Nothing? The monitoring team mutter furiously. The ship is different. In fact, it's a different ship. It's Ilma's Wex vessel, lost these years past, drifting now away from the exit point. A salvage team finds it pristine and empty, no trace of crew, and no sign of violence. But there's a journal entry in Ilma's Wex's name titled, "What Was Will Be." Our scientists review it nervously. Impossible, one says. I hope so, says another. The ship is renamed the Foundling and returned to service. The signal, dead or sleeping, says nothing at all ever again. And yet this may not be the end. So we've gained a new tech option and tech progress. Alright, so... I don't think I have any spaces for scientists to hop on it though, unfortunately. So we will leave it be for now. We'll just wait for somebody to kick the bucket. Yeah, Hanmur are unhappy with me kicking around. So... I really should cancel one of my rivalries to go after these guys, but we'll just close the borders to begin with. Now their naval capacity is equivalent, so like I said, these are guys I want to cut down pretty quickly. It's actually almost an argument for me to ignore the invasions here and just move everything down towards humbling the Hanmur right now. We'll reclaim Iolam. Alright, thanks to the quick and decisive action, the Mishran force is working with civilians on Karasona. The threat of imminent and violent riots has been quelled. Thanks, guys. I don't think we're keeping these worlds that have got unrest, to be honest. This could get ugly.
System survey complete.
Get out of there!
Primitive species enlightened.
Cool. Alright. I gotta find something to do with my influence. I think at this point we're just gonna boost up the science. I'm actually a little tempted to go for the minerals as well, but and I think I need to wrap it up fairly soon. I will try to at least take down this this invasion, and maybe we'll just save the rest of the horizon signal and such for a day where we can kind of properly dedicate time to it. Especially because, obviously, being able to
Construction complete.
cool. That's actually a good opportunity here, but I do want to, I really want to make sure that so let's take a look at what we can actually get back from the Hanmur. So if we took, I wish it was possible to just click on stuff on the monitor and add it to the demands. Okay, so there's going to be a lot of unrest that I need to deal with as a result of this, but we already know that drugging them is an acceptable answer. So basically, we could take, including their capital, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 planets from them. And they would have no friends. So basically, it's about a third of their empire that we can carve out for ourselves. Which is definitely something I'm going to do. But only after I take my own planet back. Okay, research projects. I'm running out of them. I wish there was just an auto build option at this point. Yeah, and time to get some money. Or minerals. Well, at least I'm under 100 destroyers to do.
System survey complete. System survey complete. System survey complete.
Okay, now it seems like a somewhat reasonable time to move in. The assumption here, of course, being that the 5th Strike Force will do its job before. That assumption was not justified. The Loop Temple, signs in stone. Archaeologists have found a forgotten temple in the remote highlands of Oros, buried for centuries, but recently exposed by an earthquake. Dating techniques suggest it's a pre-industrial relic, hand-hewn from volcanic rock. However, the recurring symbol on the walls and radial altar, a Mobius-looped serpent consuming its own tail, has no obvious precedent from our early history, and the inscriptions use an unknown alphabet. One excitable archaeologist suggests that it's a relic left by an unknown precursor race. In a presumably meaningless coincidence, the quake seems to have occurred at the exact same time that the final message from the black hole, as the final message from the black hole in the Gathari Maelstrom.
Situation log updated.
And of course, we will investigate the Loop Temple. And for some reason, I completely forgot that I was above the limit.
Alien spaceport
So
engaged.
I can also gain some fairly substantial improvements for
Situation log updated.
I get some fairly substantial improvements just by getting things back into the sector. But I kind of want to wrap up for tonight as quickly as I can, so we will bomb the hell out of my own planet and call it a day.
System survey complete.
I am bombing this, right? Guess not. but damage dealt by defending armies will be decreased, or to defending armies will be decreased by 0%, so.
System survey complete. Special project complete.
Our scientists have learned a great deal about the subterranean temple, but some questions remain. A roof aperture, along with the radial altar, suggests that it was once a solar calendar, but it's so badly damaged by the earthquake that we can't be certain. If the builders found particular dates important, we'll never know which ones. We've had better luck with the unknown alphabet. It's a debased variant of a better-known hieractic script, not an alien language at all, and we've successfully deciphered it. The temple is dedicated to the waiting worm, or the worm in waiting. Most of the inscriptions are sonorous poetic invocations requesting its appearance, or, if read in the other direction, its departure. There's also a body of inscriptions describing the operations of the universe, which our more excitable archaeologist swears contains references to advanced field equations. Nothing new to us, but very impressive for a temple of this vintage. We have yet to find a physicist who's prepared to go on the record as agreeing that the references are meaningful, though. The temple holds no cosmic secrets or alien weapons, as far as we can tell, but its dark spaces have a distinctive, menacing beauty, and the poetry of the invocations to the worm in waiting becomes fashionable. They are set to popular music, and they are published in collections. So we can open the loop to the public, which will increase plus 5% happiness. I'm assuming that's on, just on the capital. Reserve the planet for academic study, which will gain 200 social research. Or there's something wrong here, show leadership by sealing the temple. We will reserve it for academic study. The ISS Kanyan's name is being hailed by the Sergi of the Mishar Cooperative. This, despite the fact that it isn't sending any ID codes we recognize, and that no ship of that name has ever been commissioned. The Sergi's commanding officer claims to be Captain Bezwicki Manjobu. Our admiral of that name is alive, well, and elsewhere. The captain that appears on our screen is clearly this is tough. Begwishi Manjibu, but a scarred, haunted, decrepit wrecked edition of him, face glossy with plasma burns and older, much older. The bridge in the background looks just as scarred and just as decrepit, but the captain's voice is firm and clear. Finally, you're here. I've waited so long. My punishment isn't to die in battle against you. Please end me. I'm sorry. What is the loop? Oh, so we can get social or physics trees? Yeah. Physics. The loop is what came first and what comes next. The worm in waiting, and I suppose the worm is the loop. Let's say time is a labyrinth. The captain begins to gesture futilely. Then the loop is its monster, or its maker. No, I can't explain it, and you'll know more soon. You did in my past. Weapons locked? I guess apparently I can gain some more research. Before you go, where you've been, did you learn anything useful? The captain grins a star-stretched grin. I hope you'd ask that. Sending data now. Captain out. And it is powering its weapons, battle stations. And the messenger. The ISS Kanyan is located a small, minimally powered artificial object, broadcasting a looping signal at local range only. These sorts of things usually turn out to be escape pods, and this looks like one of those. It's been out here a long time. When the crew cracks it open, carefully observing the quarantine procedures, they find ancient remains, preserved by the sterile pod environment. So far, not unusual. The captain of the ISS Kanyan indicates, however, that they did not expect to find the Mishar words, "What was will be, what will be was," daubed on the wall in the bodily fluids of the pod's occupant, who the crew are now wryly referring to as the messenger. They add that there are some equally unexpected anatomical similarities between the messenger species and our own. Interesting. All right, so we got a bunch of studying to do. We've got a angry future captain somewhere in here. I don't really need to bring the whole fleet, but and I think I'm gonna call it for tonight, actually. Well, we'll at least wrap up the combat. All right. Oh, and the Hulfir want to declare war against the Hanmur. So it's kind of tempting to do this, except that I think I can get the Hulfir to... I can get a better deal if I declare on my own. But yeah, we are going to be going to war fairly soon. And finally, let's take advantage of 1, 2, 3. "132 corvettes and 91 destroyers before I have the fleet that I wanted." All right. That is it. I know that was only about 2 hours, guys, and I was not very talkative during the end of it. I'm really excited that I got to the horizon signal again, because that was something I rather regretted not being able to do at the end of last stream. So priorities for the next couple of days. Next cast, first of all, I'm going to have to decide one of these planets to put into the sector. That shouldn't be difficult. Probably one of these. I might even just give up Bovatir. And that should also give me a nice shot in the arm in terms of my minerals and energy again. Excuse me. I really wanted to go after the United Jazgian Authority, but the fact that the naval capacity is equal in the Hanmur Interplanetary Alliance definitely tells me that I need to strike pretty much as soon as I can. We'll wrap up some of the events for the Horizon Signal, but especially just being able to cut these. I mean, so there's two things that I get to do. One, I get to cut them down by a third. But more importantly, I get to take all of the territories that the Hulfir sovereign nations would want. So in this case, that sort of forces them into a bit of a vassalization situation with me, which is kind of, well, I mean, they may not want to be vassalized, but like the nice thing here is that I kind of close off the immediate options that they have. So at the end of this war, we should kind of have the visible parts. Our empire should sort of extend out to here with the Hanmur. It doesn't sort of eliminate them as a potential threat, but it definitely gives me a bit of a leg up for sure. And then probably afterwards I'll, assuming that I'm not completely swamped in terms of being able to manage the population, I think I'll just spin this off into some kind of an attack on these four worlds. I mean, it's worth noting, just by virtue of the fact that I'm able to extend out my borders, they're losing quite a bit just by me growing. Like, these used to be attached. One of the things I'll try and do when I declare war on them, so they've got the Juvan hegemony defending them. So what I'll probably do there, I'll outright annex these guys because I already had the armies for it. We do Omegas, Esteron, and oh, interesting. I would actually be able to vassalize. That would be what I'd prefer. So if I vassalize them, I could only establish a protectorate for the Juvan hegemony, so it seems to make just as much sense to liberate Kandor, Medak, oh, I don't want to liberate them, I want the seed. See, the tough call here is whether or not I want to take this spot as well, because that is just another planet for me to manage. I mean, it might make a sense just to try and turn them into a protectorate as well. It's definitely a big headache out of the way. Unfortunately, I don't think I could, yeah, I couldn't do both at the same time. Okay, well, in that case, it'll just be, I try and make them a tributary. That'll cost a lot. So I think I'll just try and take some I'll take some planets that are like kind of touching my borders and just generally make sense. So that'll be a plan B, just because like I've already sort of accomplished what I wanted out of these planets, or like just by natural border expansion anyway. And again, the Hanmur is the one that actually represents a potential danger. Like Spuxlack is not a huge worry. I mean, again, it is a stagnant ascendancy. They do still have a bigger fleet than me, and their technology level is still overwhelming, right? Like, I don't think I'd actually be able to take these guys on in combat, but within like 2 playthroughs, we've seen them come down to equivalent. I'm only going to be building up my fleets, and I'm only going to be getting more technology, so that's maybe less of a worry. Although I also kind of worry that these guys might get a little angry at me, because I think I'm starting to creep in on their territory. I don't know. We will figure it all out tomorrow, but I definitely need to get some sleep. So thank you, everybody. I will exit out, but before we go, I normally like to try and host somebody in the evening, so let's see who we've got. I've never heard of this, but W. Shan is playing the Dark Side Detective, so we will host him tonight. If you guys want to come along for the raid, we usually say we're tired of System Talk, heard this place was better. I do know W. Shand. I've got a chance to meet him in person a couple of times. He's a very entertaining caster, a lot more high energy than I am. And he usually plays if he's not playing a good game, it's at least fun to watch him. It's at least kind of fun to watch him play some of this stuff. So, but if it's a good game, like, he usually has a fairly good taste, and when he plays a bad game, he usually does so for humor. So, hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll see you next time.